Hello and welcome to Oakville on Deck. My name is Tim Caddigan, past chair of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. In this three-part series, we'll hear from our municipal, provincial, and federal government representatives. Up on deck, we have Minister Anita Anand and MP Pam Damoff. Before we begin, I'll pass the screen over to Dr. Janet Morrison, President and Vice Chancellor at Sheridan.
Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. Sheridan is delighted to sponsor today's event because we're immensely proud to be a member of the Oakville community and the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. And because we have such an inordinate amount of respect for today's two guest speakers. Oakville has been home to Sheridan since the early 1970s. Many of you will know us for our Oscar-winning alumni or for the successful musicals we've incubated here, like Come From Away, that have made it to Broadway. But perhaps you don't know that our Oakville campus is home to 50 programs, 16 of which are 4-year honors bachelor degrees. Our Oakville programming includes design, illustration, and photography, material arts, journalism, film and television, creative writing and publishing, visual and performing arts, applied and mobile computing and cybersecurity, education, and animation and game design. In Oakville alone, we've graduated over 11,000 students in the past 5 years. Those graduates are the conduits who transfer knowledge and skills to your workplaces. Through our applied research centers of excellence, Sheridan also plays a pivotal role in incubating innovation, enabling productivity, and boosting profitability. One of those research centers, found here at our Oakville campus, is our Center for Mobile Innovation. The center creates innovative solutions for healthcare using creative applications of mobile technologies like the Internet of Things, wearable computing, augmented virtual reality, and machine learning. Most recently, the center worked with industry partner Tech for Life to create a point-of-care self-assessment and monitoring system for COVID-19, as well as one to assist in pneumonia assessment in children. The center has garnered over $3 million in federal funding, which has fueled many innovative projects directly involving students from our Bachelor of Mobile Computing program. Our Oakville campus is also home to our Sheridan Center for Elder Research, which conducts leading-edge research in the field of aging by examining innovative ways to enhance the well-being of older adults and the environments that support them. As a testament to its importance, its depth, and its breadth, it's one of only a handful of research centers at any college or university in Canada to have received federal grant funding from every Tri-Council research agency in the country. As Canada's senior population continues to grow at exponential rates, the Centre is also a willing collaborator to companies who are seeking to understand and adapt their services and goods to better suit this growing market. Of course, bolstering Ontario's competitiveness and ensuring its place as a leader in the Canadian and global economy is a bigger job than any one organization alone can achieve. If we are to realize our shared responsibility for strengthening our economic prospects, we all must come together, industry, academia, and government. And that's why I'm equally delighted to introduce our two distinguished guests today, the Honourable Anita Anand and MP Pam Damoff. I can't think of two better champions for Oakville than these exceptionally talented, knowledgeable, hardworking, and passionate leaders. The Honourable Anita Anand was first elected as the Member of Parliament for Oakville in 2019 and was invited to serve in Cabinet as the Minister of Public Service and Procurement, where she has been tirelessly at work, sourcing much-needed vaccines for us all, in addition to critically required PPE, ventilators, and other equipment. Minister Anand is a devoted leader in her community and has served on the board of directors of the Lighthouse Foundation for Grieving Children, the Oakville Hospital Foundation, and Oakville Hydroelectricity Distribution, Inc. For the past 2 decades, Minister Anand has been a legal academic, employed most recently as a professor of law at the University of Toronto, where she held the J.R. Kimber Chair in Investor Protection and Corporate Governance. Minister Anand has completed extensive research on the regulation of financial markets, corporate governance, and shareholder rights. In 2019, the Royal Society of Canada awarded her the Yvonne Allaire Medal for outstanding contributions in governance relating to private and public organizations. MP Pam Damoff was first elected as the Member of Parliament for Oakville North, Burlington in 2015. Before being elected to federal office, she served as an Oakville Town Councillor from 2010 to 2015. Ms. Damoff co-founded Cycle Oakville and serves as chair of the Oakville Terry Fox Run and is a committee member of the Courage Polar Bear Dip. MP Damoff is the recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal and the Paul Harris Fellow recognition from Rotary International. She also received the Linda Jones Women's Activist Award from the Oakville District Labor Council and the Top 40 Fabulous Women Over 40 Excellence Award for community leadership. She is a longtime supporter of our Theatre Sheridan, an avid supporter of our Centre for Indigenous Learning and Support, and a strong advocate for applied research at Sheridan. On that note, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Government of Canada for its investment of $46 million in the most recent budget for college and community innovation across the country, a proposal that was championed by MP Damoff. Please join me in welcoming Anita and Pam.
Welcome back. Welcome, Minister Anand and MP Damoff. Let's jump right in. I'll start with you, Minister. I'm trying to think of a way to say this, that this past year has been unprecedented without using the word unprecedented. I'm getting tired of that word. So we'll skip that, and maybe you could share with us some of your observations and insights on how the federal government has navigated through the pandemic, and what do you think the next 6 months will look like?
I would start by saying that I have never in my life seen a government move with such alacrity and enthusiasm for collaborative partnership across the country in order to support a population through a global pandemic or crisis. We have seen the federal government roll out massive pieces of legislation, financial supports for small businesses, for individuals, for voluntary sector organizations, and we are continuing on that path as the recent budget indicates. From a healthcare perspective, we have procured 2.7 billion items of PPE for the provinces and territories, 40 million rapid tests, and over 100 million doses of vaccine, which, as you know, are arriving by the millions on a week-to-week basis. We have 39% of the Canadian population inoculated with at least one dose at the current time. And in addition to the vaccines, the federal government is providing free of charge the supplies that are used to administer the vaccines. So this is across the board support for the provinces and territories across sectors. And I am honored to be part of a government that is so committed to seeing Canadians to the other side of this pandemic.
You and I have talked about this before. You've had a heck of a role, certainly right in the thick of it. And it has to have taken a toll. I mean, based on what you signed up for, this isn't exactly it. What's that been like?
Oh, it hasn't taken a toll on me personally. I will say that I'm sure MP Damoff would agree with me. We're both very honored to be part of this government and really working hard across the board to do whatever we each can, and together with our colleagues to support Canadians. And in terms of procurement, you're right, it has been a bit of a surprise in terms of the role that I have been playing in the entire rollout of the vaccines, for example, and the PPE procurement. But by the same token, I got into this business to try to do my best to help Canadians and help the people of Oakville and Halton. And I feel fortunate that I've been able to do that. I will say that my Halton colleagues, Karina Gould, Adam Mancoverton, Pam Damoff, and I have become very close by working together for Halton through this pandemic. And we are just so excited to continue to work through to the other side of the pandemic and then to continue to support our community, whether it's through the supports for local businesses or for the environment or for other issues relating to our economy. We will continue to work together as a team, I'm sure. And I'm sure Pam would agree with that.
Pam, your government recently released the Budget 2021, a recovery plan for jobs, growth, and resilience. What in the budget are you most proud of, and how do you think Oakville businesses and residents will benefit from this budget?
Well, thank you, Tim. And I first want to say it's just a privilege to work with Minister Anand here in Oakville. You know, we communicate all the time, and it's wonderful to be working together in the federal government. I am absolutely the most proud of the announcement around childcare and early learning. $30 billion over 5 years shows a true commitment to childcare and early learning. And in the past parliament, I was vice chair of the Status of Women Committee, and we studied the economic security of women. And the number one thing holding women back in the workforce, whether it's entering the workforce, advancing in their career, finding well-paid employment, was childcare. And so that's something that this budget is looking to address. We'll be investing $30 billion over 5 years, and then with almost $9 billion a year thereafter, which will reduce childcare fees to $10 a day for quality, affordable, inclusive childcare. So some people may be saying, well, why does that help me if I don't have kids? I actually haven't heard that, but I think it's a question that the economic impact for our country is huge. McKinsey estimated $150 billion would be added to our economy by having women fully participate in the workforce. So that's something that I'm absolutely thrilled about. There is so much in the budget, though, Tim. Everything from extending the programs we put in place for business, which I've heard from businesses in Oakville, and I'm sure that Minister Anand has as well, who said they couldn't have survived without the programs that we put in place, whether it's the wage subsidy, the emergency loans that were put in place, the CEBA. And also I've heard from them that their employees were able to survive because of the CERB. So, you know, those will be extended. The budget was over 700 pages long, so I don't have time to get into all of them. Support for seniors, support for students, but certainly a lot of support for businesses. And as the Prime Minister says, we will have Canadians back, and that includes Canadian businesses until we're through this. So if there's more that we need to do as we go forward, we will be there for businesses across Canada and in Oakville.
Thank you. Minister, as part of this series, we're hosting similar conversations with your colleagues at both the municipal and the provincial level. Where do you see areas for great collaboration with your colleagues at both of those levels?
Well, Tim, if you just look over the past year, we have been partnering with the provincial government and the municipal government in areas like the funding for electric buses. And in terms of the Ford plant and the support for zero emission vehicles, that Ford announcement that we collaborated on with the provincial government last year to ensure there was funding for the retooling of the Ford plant's production line towards ZEVs is an incredible example in my mind of the movement towards cross-governmental collaboration, but also in an incredibly important area, which is in environmental sustainability. And our government has continually said that if you don't have a plan for the environment, you don't have a plan for the economy going forward. We have in Halton especially a very dedicated group of citizens to seeing lower carbon emissions across the board. And so we're going to need to see collaboration across governments going into the future, like the Ford plant transaction shows, like the electric buses that Pam and I were so lucky to be able to announce in person last year. This is the wave of the future, and our government will continue to be committed to environmental sustainability while we move this economy forward through the pandemic and beyond.
Almost seems nostalgic if you say in person.
Yes, exactly.
Pam, you're probably aware that one of the advocacy priorities for the Chamber is the importance of digitization and its role in economic recovery post-pandemic. What is the federal government doing to ensure that municipalities like Oakville lead the way in a digitally and data-connected community?
Well, that's a great question, because I remember bringing or suggesting Scott Bryson visit the Chamber a few years ago as president of the Treasury Board, and he spoke about the transformation of how critical it is to move to digital government. I think I still use the line that he used, that government is like Blockbuster in a Netflix world, and it's important that we change that. So I think one of the things that the pandemic has highlighted is just how critical that move is. And many businesses, even medicine, has moved to digital platforms because they had to. And so, you're seeing the rise of e-medicine. You're seeing how critical those businesses that move to e-commerce, how in many cases, it's been the what's allowed them to survive. So the pandemic has certainly hastened that, and we've taken a number of steps to provide funding for that move. So back in June 2020, we invested with the province of Ontario to expand the Digital Main Street program, and then we're launching the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which will create jobs for young people, but also provide microgrants to small business. And so in budget 2021, we're proposing 1.4 billion over 4 years to create programs that will work across Canada to allow businesses to access those skills, to apply for microgrants. And then we're also investing 2.6 billion to the Business Development Bank of Canada. There's a number of things that we're doing. As you know, Tim, in order to access programs, municipalities have to apply. We rely on them to look at what's needed. I know Anita mentioned the move to electric buses. That's certainly, I know Oakville Transit has looked at a way to digitize their transit service and have done some tremendous work, even going back to when I was on council, in moving to make sure that their systems were digitalized and provide riders with actual real-time data. So there's a number of opportunities for the municipality and also for small business to take advantage of programs that we're putting in place. And really, we all need to make those moves, because otherwise it's the way of the future, and the pandemic has just accelerated that exponentially.
I would agree with that. Minister, you've been MP for Oakville with a seat at the cabinet table since October 2019, and we've had a number of conversations over the part of your term about the pandemic, about your role. Is there anything new that you'd like to share with your constituents related to vaccine rollout or the plans for the next 6 months?
Well, most definitely. The vaccines are coming into the country by the millions, 2 million per week from Pfizer every week in May, and 2.4 million for 5 weeks in June from Pfizer alone. Moderna is going to be supplying Canada with at least 2 million doses in May. So that is at least 8 million doses in this country for the month of May. And prior to the end of June, we should have over 40 million doses in the country from 4 approved suppliers alone. So this really takes us back to the very beginning of putting into place our contracts. And our goal for vaccines was to make sure that Canada could pull vaccine from multiple sources from a diversified portfolio of vaccines. And I think that strategy is continuing to play out to the benefit of Canadians, because we were a country that did not rely on one vaccine alone. We made sure to diversify our procurements because of the lack of domestic production at the time. And in addition to those agreements, which are bringing in, about 110 million vaccines prior to the end of September, we also have domestic production that is occurring. We have an APA with Medicago, for example, a company in Quebec. We have an MOU with Novavax and Moderna for production of vaccine in Canada. We've supplied various labs with research funding. So really, this has been a two-track approach to vaccine procurement, and we will continue to see Canada well placed. I think the key issue is going to be in the long term, the vaccine availability for 2022, 23, 24. And in order to be prepared, what we have done is to put in place a contract with Pfizer for the production and provision of 65 million vaccines over the course of 2 years, 2022 and 23. So we are putting Canada in such a position that we won't ever again have to be worried about vaccines coming into this country and when. And that's the ongoing work of the department. And then finally, I'll just say, I mentioned supplies earlier, but don't underestimate the importance of, for example, syringes to administer vaccines and how tight the market is globally for low dead volume syringes, those syringes which enable you to extract the most amount of vaccine from a vial. And Canada has procured 72.5 million syringes of those low dead volume sort. And in essence, we are ahead of many countries in our ability to source supplies. So when Pam and I were visiting one of the vaccination sites prior to lockdown, we were both kind of startled and really taken aback at how prevalent the federal support right across the board is, not just in terms of vaccines, but vaccine supplies. So that's the work of procurement. It's going on. And then in addition to all the healthcare type procurements, I mentioned rapid tests and PPE, those are still going on as well. My department also has carriage over a number of files, icebreakers, future fighters, the restoration of the center block and the parliamentary precinct. And that work is continuing as well. So it's been busy, but it's very, very enjoyable work. And I'm very honored to be able to do it.
So closer to home, if you can set your ministerial portfolio aside, as Member of Parliament for Oakville, what are your local priorities and what do you hope to accomplish? You would have come into office, I'm sure, with some ideas of what you wanted to accomplish. Everything has been set aside. If we can reset, what would you like to do?
Well, this is a topic actually that Pam and I have been discussing with Adam and Karina together because we see ourselves as really working as a group for Halton as a whole. So I'd be interested to hear what Pam thinks. But without question, the environment and environmental sustainability and the reduction of carbon emissions has been a very, very strong focal point for me personally, for the riding of Oakville, whenever I've spoken with Oakville residents, and working together with all levels of government to make sure that we have a plan for Canada, for Halton, for Oakville in terms of environmental sustainability. Of course, the economy is always top of mind in this region, and I think across Canada, especially as we want to see ourselves emerging strongly from the pandemic. And I will say that Canada entered the pandemic in a very strong fiscal position. It enabled our government to take very strong and decisive action. The danger would have been not doing enough. And so what we did is put in place strong fiscal supports, which have been utilized across our riding in order that small businesses, for example, can survive. And where we needed to pivot and readjust those supports, for example, in the wage subsidy, we did exactly that because we listened to small business and we made sure that we were there for them. We will continue to do that. And at a broader level, I would say that the framework and the financial framework is prudent and sustainable in terms of the budget that Minister Freeland put forward. The federal debt to GDP ratio is expected to fall to 49.2% by 2025-26, and the deficit to reach 1.1% of GDP that same year. So there is a plan. It's important for us to think locally in the context of the broader economy, which our finance minister has made sure in our budget remains on track.
Pam, you've been Member of Parliament for Oakville, North Burlington, my riding, I can't say apparently, for 2 terms. But before that, you were on council. How did that experience, especially now with the pandemic, all 3 levels of government working together? You've had a view at the municipal level and at the federal level. Has that helped?
Yeah, I think it has. And I think you saw, especially early on in the pandemic, unprecedented collaboration between all 3 levels of government. I mean, at one point, the provincial member for Oakville, North Burlington, and I were doing weekly e-news updates to our constituents because we knew that information was coming out fast and furious for residents, for businesses, and also with the municipality. I think it's been helpful, although I think everyone recognized that we all needed to just roll our sleeves up and get to work and work together in order to help to support residents of Oakville. Well, my riding, Oakville, North Burlington, but certainly in Oakville, and we have been working quite well together. And there's been bumps on the road, but that's what happens in families, right? You sometimes may hit a little bump in the road, but I think I have heard from my constituents, and I'm sure Anita has as well, they want to see us working together. They want to see all levels of government working together, moving forward together, and they don't want to see us arguing. So, I mean, certainly we have taken that to heart. I hear it from constituents all the time, and I think you're right. Having experience at another level of government was helpful, but I think all of us have been focused on our number one priority, our constituents and Canadians, and as long as you keep your focus there, I think you'll do the right thing.
Tim,
sorry, go ahead.
I might just add something there, Tim, as well, because I feel strongly, as does Pam, that we maintain a collaborative approach at all levels of government to get things done, not just at a policy level, but I think it's important for young people to see their elected politicians as role models, and the ability to collaborate and cooperate across levels of government, regardless of political party, is one of the things that we all feel very strongly about. And in that vein, I reached out to MPP Stephen Crawford last week to have a touch base to make sure that we are able to continue working together. And we had a lovely conversation as he agrees as well on that point.
That's good to hear. Pam, I want to talk about the same question that I posed to the minister around your priorities as you came into this term. Clearly, you wouldn't have known what was lying ahead. So again, once we get a little more back to normal, what are some of those priorities? What would you like to accomplish?
Well, similar to Anita, I mean, the environment and the economy go hand in hand. I think the investment at Ford of Canada is a good example of supporting a business and a business recognizing that taking action on climate change is good for their business. And so as a government, we were able to step in, as was the provincial government, to support their move. So I think certainly when I was elected, the environment was something that I heard at the door a lot. Anita very eloquently talked about the economy and our fiscal position. The other one that I heard at the doors a lot, and I'm extremely committed to then as I am now, is gun control. And I heard from constituents, and I continue to hear from constituents, that they want us to take action on it. So we banned military style assault rifles. There's a bill before Parliament right now to implement further gun control. People often get confused that they focus on guns and gangs, and our government has taken action on that, and it's critically important. So we've made investments in policing, in diversions to keep youth from getting involved in gangs in the first place. But the military style assault rifle is critically important, but as is some of the things that are in Bill C-21 is the bill on red flags, because 75% of people who die from firearms are dying by suicide. And women who are in abusive relationships, because it's predominantly women, where they're either killed with a firearm or the firearm is used as a means of controlling them, coercive control. So I remain committed to that, and that's probably the starkest difference that I see in Parliament, because our opposition, the Conservative Party, would undo the assault rifle ban, and they would undo all the work that we did in the last Parliament around lifetime background checks, things that we put in place under Bill C-71 would be gone. So that's something that I'm also committed to, and I remain committed to regardless of the pandemic, because what we've seen is that the incidents of domestic violence have spiked during the pandemic. Home is not always a safe place for people. So that's, in addition to the environment and the economy, I would say gun control is definitely one of my priorities.
The pandemic has, I think, made some angry people angrier, and you certainly see that on social media. The two of you, would be role models to a lot of younger women that think about perhaps entering politics. How has that experience been for you? I know some of your colleagues, especially, it's disgusting some of the things that are said online, but I'm curious at a personal level with the both of you, how that experience has been.
Who do you want to start, Tim?
Well, let's start with you, Pam. You spoke.
I've noticed it's gotten much worse since I was, certainly since I was elected in 2015 federally. I noticed it started to change in the 2019 election, and it's gotten much, much worse. I just brought a motion to the Public Safety Committee last week to look at ideologically motivated violent extremism, which is what our security agencies are calling it. But it's misogynist, xenophobic, people who are motivated because of conspiracy theories and not lack of trust in the government. And I personally have been, because I'm so vocal on gun control, have been subject to incredibly frightening attacks, including from the National Firearms Association, whose executive director lives in my riding. I brought a motion to public safety to condemn their statements about bringing back the guillotine because of our firearms legislation, which passed. But it's completely uncalled for. I report social media comments that are inappropriate. It's something you have to have a thick skin to deal with, but I do think that we need more women in politics, because the tone changes overall when you do have more women at the table. So, I try to carry myself in a way that would be a role model for young women, and I do always encourage them to get involved, but the tone on social media has without a doubt gotten worse, and it's frightening. You saw what happened in the United States on January the 6th, and I find that tone has creeped into to Canada and to our communities. So but I still think women should get involved.
Minister?
Well, listen, I am a woman, obviously, but also a visible minority woman. And so it's very difficult for me to separate out my views only about gender. I think that I represent both and many other perhaps demographic groups. I'm a mom, and I used to be a kind of lawyer, professor. So there are lots of things I think that go into making a member of parliament a representative for the people writ large. But having said that, I agree with Pam wholeheartedly that we have a role to play to increase the integrity and the professionalism in the role of elected officials. And that's indeed one of the reasons that I thought I'd like to get into politics, that the tone of political discourse was very bitter after the 2016 US election. And I wanted to play a part in really making sure that young people saw the best in their elected officials. I agree with Pam that there is a very bitter tone in the House of Commons and in politics, generally speaking. We're over a year into this pandemic and people want it to end. And so this is perhaps one of the reasons that we're seeing such, I would say, hostility in political discourse. But by the same token, the more we can encourage positive and collaborative behavior among elected officials, the more likely it is that we will have strong candidates running for office, the more positive our role will be for the younger generation in terms of being a role model. And those are the types of things I think about on another level when we're going through each and every day in virtual parliament or in our various meetings. I will say that Pam's role in terms of the Public Safety Committee and the motion that she mentioned that she's bringing forward and her historic work in this area has been very significant. And we need to continue to ensure that online abuse and harassment is really tamped down. And I will say that our Women's Caucus has been playing a very important role in that respect, bringing forward issues that we need to ensure that we address as a caucus and as a government.
Well, that's good to hear. It's unfortunate that either one of you have been subjected to any of that sort of hatred that comes out online, and it makes social media a less fun place when what it's supposed to be is sharing information and maybe a few laughs, but it's unfortunate. I'm glad you're both doing the work you're doing. We have to leave it there. It's good seeing you both. I'd like to thank you both for being generous with your time, and to conclude our event and series, please welcome Daniel Salvatore, Manager of Public Affairs at CN Canada.
Hello, my name is Daniel Salvatore, and as Tim mentioned, I'm the Manager of Public Affairs for Ontario with CN Rail. At CN, we take pride in being regarded internationally as one of the best performing transportation and logistics companies. Our commitment is to create value for both customers and shareholders by deepening our customer engagement, leveraging the strength of our franchise, and delivering operational service excellence. CN is a proud member of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce and pleased to partner with the Chamber to support this new Oakville On Deck program. On behalf of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce, we would like to thank Mayor Burton, MPP Crawford, MPP Triantafilopoulos, MP Damoff, and Minister Anand for participating in this important dialogue and event. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to CN for your continued support. I'd like to thank our other partners once again, Sheridan, Bell Canada, and Cogeco. These events would not be possible without their support. To our members, thank you for joining us on Oakville on Deck. We appreciate your participation and encourage you to stay involved by visiting oakvillechamber.com or following our social media platforms for future events. That's all the time we have. Have a safe and productive day.